Morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coffee with Cory. I'm your host, Cory Smith, here to discuss some NC State men's basketball. NC State spatters Texas Southern, as most people expected last night, 108-74, I believe was the final, 72. The score really doesn't matter. NC State covered the spread, wins, scores over 100 points in the game, wins convincingly in Reynolds Coliseum. We talked about it last night. If you haven't listened to the post-game podcast, I did with Miles. Oh, hey, Tucker. How you doing, buddy? Wants to jump in on the podcast with us here. But we talked about, in detail the game and everything last night. Paul McNeil obviously went off, 11 three-pointers for him, 47 points. Broke Rodney Monroe's NC State three-point shooting record. Obviously, 47 points was the most scored for NC State since 1991. Which also happened to be Rodney Monroe. Rodney Monroe, a pretty good player, clearly. But the fact that he scored 54 or scored 47 was a massive game for him. And the fact that NC State scored over 100 points in this one, again, the offense was clearly humming in this game, but it was the defense that Will Wade took issue with afterwards. It was the physical toughness that he took issue with afterwards. The fact that he's talked about this over and over again. The fact that, he's just not seeing the want to from guys in a lot of these situations. He kind of took a couple games off from really talking about that. Obviously, pre-game UNC Asheville, he highlighted a lot of that with Matt Chazanow. We talked to him afterwards, didn't really talk a ton about that. Just kind of, mentioned the fact that, they had a practice the morning of, and, he got what he kind of wanted from his team in that game. But he's, the Kansas game, talked about it a little bit, but not really, highlighting a lot of the toughness issues or the defensive issues. Just kind of, it was lethargic after that one, it was a frustrating game. The fact that you should have gotten a win there potentially if you made a last second shot, if you, are better offensively in the first half. So it wasn't so much the defensive issues in that one, except for allowing one guy to absolutely go off in Melvin Council Jr. This game was different. This is the last game that you get an opportunity to really, prove yourself and from a defensive standpoint, get the right things done in this game. And they ultimately, again, won the game outright, won it convincingly, but it wasn't the defensive performance that Will Wade wanted to see. So he chose in post game to let the media know, but really more so seemed to be telling his players through the media what he saw on the court and what he wants to see moving forward. I'm going to quickly show Charlie Gribble's video that he posted last night. Obviously, Charlie works for us, and I want to highlight as much. You can go look on our YouTube. If you're on our YouTube right now, obviously, you can go watch the entire thing. But it was about a 4-minute and 11-second clip at the very end where he, talked about, his team really not getting it to this point. But I'm going to start it from Charlie's question. If you haven't, you can go over to Charlie's Twitter. It's at Charlie_Grib to find the full video here. But I just wanted to post that really quickly so that you guys can see it if you haven't already watched it. So as you can see, his entire this is where you can find Charlie. It's pinned tweet right now, but I wanted to highlight this really quickly so that you guys can see the full video.
Is it concerning that it's taken this long to get things going? Is that
it ain't going?
Yeah.
Shit, it's concerning. It's taking this long and we're not there. And we got all high major games from here on out. Kindergarten's over. We got all high major games from here on out. I mean, it's concerning. I played some of those kids and I made their Christmas. It's going to be miserable for me. I made their Christmas. They got a Christmas present a week early. Playing some of these guys. But it is. I've been concerned for weeks. But this is it is. We are who we are. I said it a couple weeks ago. If you're not physical and you're not tough, you better be alert and aware. And we're still none of the four. We're not physical. We're not tough. We're not alert. We're not aware. If you're alert and aware, you don't give up 5 points on baseline out of bounds plays with the clock under 3 seconds. You just don't do it. Our goal every game is to win baseline and sideline out of bounds by 6+. We never do it. We made it tonight because we actually executed our inbounds play. but we just don't do it. I mean, it's beyond concerning. I mean, concerns like here. I mean, this is like a problem, major problem. We'll see. We got to have some internal leadership. That's what we got to have. Got to have internal leadership. Got to have urgency. Got to have intensity. Got to have effort on every possession. We have to dominate possessions. Dominate possessions. And we just get through possessions. Just hold on for dear life in possessions.
Thanks, Coach.
So, as you can tell, clearly, a pleased Will Wade with the way that his team played, and I didn't post the previous, the previous 2 minutes of that clip. As D said here, loved his daycare comments. Yes, he talked about the fact that the GPA is great, and the fact that everybody's nice is great, but he feels like he's running a daycare that they're not. He's trying to run a college basketball program right now, like a D1 college basketball program, an ACC college basketball program that's trying to get to the NCAA tournament. And he doesn't feel like he's getting the toughness out of his team. And, we've seen it a couple times. I still go back to the VCU game. NC State was good enough defensively in several situations in that game. You go back to the Boise State game. They were very good defensively in that one. And I would, outside of, again, giving up a crazy 3-point shooter in the Auburn game, a couple crazy 3-point shooters in that game, felt like they were good enough defensively there. Just offensively, it didn't quite click for them, especially down the stretch, to be able to kind of generate somewhat of a run. So we've seen it a couple times. Just, again, it's about consistency with this team. It's about having that same consistent effort. And when your team is not doing that against Texas Southern, when they're kind of lacking off and you're going, all right, well, we've done enough offensively to not be able to, to limit what they're going to do. That's not good enough. And I mean, you saw NC State climb in the net rankings after beating a Texas Southern team. And, we talked about it a lot last year, or the last couple of years, the fact that, well, why is NC State dropping in the net rankings after beating a team? Well, it was a bad opponent, and NC State didn't end up, covering the spread and didn't end up, winning it by double digits. You won a tighter game than what you should have. And maybe that wouldn't have mattered in the past. Like if you looked at the overall resume in the past, it wouldn't have mattered. But when you're looking at the net rankings, the net kind of includes that in it. How convincingly did you win? And so those factors come into play when you beat a team like Liberty. That game against Liberty defensively was NC State's best game of the year. By far, probably the best defensive game in a decade for NC State overall. You put up, you allow it to keep a team that was top 5 in 3-point shooting percentage coming into that game. They didn't have a lot of size down low, but they could shoot the living crap out of the basketball from behind the arc, and you limit them to 45 points in that game. That was massive. That was huge for what you want to try to build towards for NC State. You just didn't have it consistently on the court night in and night out. And I think this was more so, to me, this wasn't about the Texas Southern game. And this wasn't necessarily about the games that you've had in the past. This was more about, let's get serious, guys. Let's get serious here. Like he mentions kindergarten's over now at this point. Well, it wasn't all kindergarten. I mean, the Maui Invitational, you ended up facing some really tougher teams than we thought going into that game. And then obviously coming out of that, you lose to Auburn, you lose to Kansas. You've lost 4 of the games against high major opponents that you could have and potentially should have won if your defense was better than what it's shown. And now it's about, guys, yes, you put up a good defensive effort against Kansas the last game out, except for obviously Melvin Council Jr. just going absolutely nuclear. But it's not, you can't just slack off and say, all right, that was good enough. We're going to be good enough against Texas Southern, then we're going to turn it on against Auburn. No, it needs to be on every single time you touch the court. And I think it's about look, guys, we're preaching this in practice over and over and over again. We're trying to drill this in your head over and over and over again. And he also talked about the exact opposite of what we saw. It's interesting because it's the exact opposite of what we saw from Kevin Keatts last year, where Kevin Keatts talked about his team being in the gym, and Paul McNeil kind of slacking off last year. Paul McNeil going out on the town a couple times early on in the year. You're seeing the exact opposite, where Will Wade talked about the fact that his team before the South Carolina exhibition, they all went to an NBA YoungBoy concert the night before. if you follow any of these guys on Instagram, anything along those lines, you saw what they were posting, and it was just a few of the guys like Jordan Snell, Darian Williams, I think Terrence Arsenault, a couple others that were all out there. And you're in college, you're able to afford those tickets, you go out, you enjoy that. But his frustration was the fact that Paul McNeil didn't go. Paul McNeil spent 45 minutes in the gym the day before, and Paul McNeil hits a game winner against South Carolina. Granted, it's an exhibition, sure, but at the same time, like you're seeing guys like Paul McNeil, guys like, obviously we're hearing about Scotty Ebube and the effort that he's put forth in the recent weeks. We're hearing about Alan Snead and the effort that he's putting forth to be able to kind of get him some time on the court. He's just wanting to see it consistently across the roster. And you've got a ton of talent. Like offensively, you've got guys that can go off. Quadir Copeland, Darian Williams when he's on, Paul McNeil clearly when he's on. So many other guys across the board. Trey Holloman can, Vin Allen Lubin can. And we're hearing a lot about Vin Allen Lubin too. Like, I don't want to just forget about his effort and what we're hearing from him. But you just have to see it consistently across the roster. You have to see the communication. You have to see the toughness. You have to see the physicality for this team. And you're not seeing it on a consistent enough basis right now for Will Wade. And I don't think, once you get to ACC play, and it doesn't start with ACC play, obviously Ole Miss on Sunday before you get to the Christmas break, and then you come back New Year's Eve, guys are going to have to be locked in. You have Wake Forest at home. Then you go to Virginia shortly after that, or you have Virginia at home shortly after that. So like all these things have to factor in. And I think it's more so because of the fact that, if guys are locked in and they're seeing, okay, well, we're favored in this game, because I think NC State is probably going to be the favorite for the next 5, 6, maybe even 7 games over the course of the next few weeks. There's some chance that these guys look at it and go, all right, well, we're the favorite, we're the better team, we'll just go out there, we'll handle business. It's not about handling business. It's about going out there and being that consistent team as not only offensively, which still needs some work from time to time, but defensively, locking in on your scout, locking in on closing out on the perimeter. This team is not good enough still from a perimeter defensive standpoint to be able to consistently win games and keep, just take teams out of games. Like you're good down low at times, but you're going to face some bigger big men. And if they're able to unlock the outside and inside part of this game, it's going to be really tough to stop opposing offenses once you get to the ACC. So we'll talk much more about that. I'll have another story coming out soon on all of this and kind of my thoughts, a little bit deeper thoughts on this too. And we'll have plenty of content. We'll be leaving later tonight to go down to Tampa Bay. Got the Gasparilla Bowl tomorrow. I'll have plenty of content from that and leading up to Ole Miss on Sunday. Women's basketball tonight. I'll have a story, hopefully trying to find some time to write about Camille Pierre and the impact that she's had before this game tonight. But thank you again, everybody, for listening. We will talk to you again soon.